Hello, this is another tutorial. Let's do the laser cutting of our previously made or modeled geometry in Rhino. Okay, so laser cutting is simple as drawing some lines, some curves that order the machine to go through them, and they will be cutting with the laser cut type of machine. After that, we just have to glue the pieces together. A very simple job once we have the complexity of the cuts. Okay, so first we open our previously made model. Let's go to laser cut, the one we saved from the at the end of the previous video tutorial. And we have a couple models. I cannot select them now because they're locked, I think. And we have basically two ingredients, two elements. First, the orange final model building, and then we also have the terrain. Okay, so let's open Grasshopper. From Grasshopper, we open our C laser cut terrain and building. Open, and we scroll out to see that there's a set of definitions that I've been preparing for you. So we basically have a group here in the bottom. This, if we zoom out in the Rhino model, scrolling out, we can see something here happening, something like blue colors. So this is gonna be the big blue. It's called the bed surface of the machine. The bed surface means a glass surface in the machine that allows us to place on top of it our board, in this case chipboard, and that would be kind of like the scanner surface that we place the material, and then the laser goes through it and cuts our own board. So that's kind of like the safe surface to put things on top to be laser cutted. Okay, so I'm pretty much giving some dimensions here that allows us to variate or change the dimensions of our board, but never obviously the board of the machine. Okay, that makes sense. So first step, bottom definition, we set what is that, where are the dimensions of our material, of our chipboard. Okay, so if it's 30, you go to 30. If it's 15, if it's 17, and again there's a maximum requirement, and of course minimum is 0. Makes sense. So this is a point where you have to kind of place here the two numbers. You can always double click on the white area and set your number by typing in 25, pressing enter, and you change it exactly. Okay, we will come back to this afterwards, but basically what we're gonna do is create the geometry of both lines, the outer perimeter line of the material and this other line that is an offset towards the interior, that we can call it the safe area. We should put all the curves that we're going to create very soon in this video tutorial inside of the offset curve, so we are making sure that we don't mess up the material border. Okay, so that's kind of like the safe area. Never put polylines from that curve out, always inwards. Okay, so we're gonna bake that right in a second. We probably have to bake several surfaces as well, because we might not have enough surface to put all the curves that we need to cut from the model into this board. Okay, so let's go through the next definitions. Here in the top we have a lot of things in orange, means that there's no data. If you scroll here, it says select your building object here. Okay, so let's scroll into the object. What we're gonna do is right click on geometry, set one geometry, the Grasshopper closes, and select the big guy. As you can see, something has happened to it, and if you take a look close to it, somehow it's been cut like many times. No? It's interesting. And something else has happened here. If you scroll out, automatically a set of numbers and a set of kind of like polylines have been organized in one side of our project here. So let's go down right underneath geometry and change some of these sliders and see what happens. You see how this measures the distance between the pieces. So if for some reason you have them like too close like that, you cannot separate them. You cannot take one into the border, etc., etc. You need to kind of distance them in a way that allows you to select them correctly after being baked. Okay, this is in the other direction. So just doesn't matter if it's a big size, because we're gonna have to place each of these here. Needless to say, there's a script or another grasshopper definition that is a little more complex and places these guys directly into your board size. That's called a Rhino nest. And if you're encouraged, there are some video tutorials out there that are very, very good. Okay, this pretty much, this number sets how many columns and rows do we want to have to create all of our cuts. Now the most important is it's down here. So let's first actually select the terrain. Let's go to the geometry. Again here, down here. Select your terrain object. You right click, set one geometry, select the terrain. And if we scroll out, we see that it has created several cuts as well. Good. With their corresponding numbers. Good. So as I say, there was something important here. Here's the same. As you can see, you can play with the distance. Again, we want to make sure that there's enough distance for us to select one by one and move them in order into the board. Okay. Now there's one here that doesn't have the top one because there's actually a link. It's defining the material thickness. If you see here the terrain and the object, they seem to have been cut vertically and in this direction endless times and always separated specific distance. See that? Same distance between cuts. This is the distance, 0.125. I think this will work for your models. Now if you go to buy you're going to buy some chipboard and you find a better one, you can easily double click on the white area and set this to a different number. I encourage you to search for this thickness. Lower, it's going to create a lot of cuts for you, but it could be better definition, and thicker, you could have a bit of a trouble to laser cut it. But again, you're more than welcome to change this parameter, and obviously the thinner the material, the more cuts you need, therefore the more time you need in the machine. Okay, I was playing about the machine and the layers that we need to put things together, etc. very soon. Okay, at this point we only have to bake things. If we scroll here to the right and top and we select where it says orient, they turn green. Okay, first I'm going to create a layer, press in new layer and call it building lines. Then I'm going to say right click to orient, bake, building lines. Okay, there we have them. You see, tags. We want to also create another layer called building lines tag. Right click on the tag, I'm going to say bake, building lines tag. Pop, creates this kind of a nice cute symbol of a number. We need that. Next, create another 2 layers, and I guess you're guessing already what the names are. Going to be terrain lines, and new layer, terrain lines tag. Okay, we're going to go right click on orient, bake, scroll down, terrain lines. on tag, bake, terrain lines, tags. Okay, good. At this point, we probably want to already bake the materials for your model. We need to know exactly what size you want. I'm gonna do 30, or I don't know, I'm not sure, 25, 16, or 26, 16. Again, depends on where you buy and how you buy this model. I'm gonna create a couple, just one layer actually. I'm gonna call it surface limit, and I'm gonna select this one, right click, bake, scroll down, surface limit, okay. And this one is the outer one, right click, bake, surface limit, okay. So this time I think we can close grasshopper. This is our border. We're gonna now do a couple things. I'm gonna go to the top view. You should make sure that you save as this point, and you call it laser cut reference. That means that you can always come back here and say, this one is the first, this is the map of what number goes first and second, counting, starting on 0. Now, another thing is that you need to know which of the laser cuttings of the terrain should meet exactly with which of the buildings. For that, if you open again Grasshopper, you can just go here and count very easily what cut is the one that corresponds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me go to the perspective to make sure we can hide these elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. According to this count, the curve number 9 of the terrain should be placed together with the curve number 0, because you glue number 0 to 1 of the terrain, to 2, 3, 4. When the 9 comes, you're gluing together the building with the terrain in that order, and you continue on. Okay, so again, 9 equals to 0, but again depends on the size of your board, the thickness of your board. Okay, now we can close. After that, we have this map, and what we can do is, for example, start moving these guys, and I will stop it here, but what I want to do is say move, start organizing these guys perfectly within the interior space of this curve, the inner one. Again, there could not be any curved polylines from our project outside of this curve. Okay, if you want to change the layer for the surface limit to blue to make sure you see that all these curves should come inside of the interior offset curve. Okay, so you can select, put these ones carefully here, leave a little space, and so and so. You need to leave a sufficient space for you to know the difference between this cut and the next one. Remember, these are going to come cutted, and therefore it's not going to be that easy to know where is this piece going exactly. You know it's going to go right after that one, but once it's cutted, it's going to be quite of a puzzle work. It's almost a little game I encourage you guys to do. So again, number 2, number 3, keep the same order from bottom left growing up. So the 3, if the 4, if the 5th doesn't fit, put the 5th in the bottom to the next to the right, and go on with the same rhythm as you have received the numbering from Grasshopper. Okay, so I'm gonna stop it there. Pretty much put everything in boards, so you can always copy these ones very easily. Control C, Control V, as you know, and put it down, and keep on adding curves until you have everything fitted the best possible way into the board. Okay.